let me raise the big questions. Have Donald Trump's verbal googlies, and I'm calling them verbal googlies intentionally, stumped India? Are Trump remarks getting needlessly tangled once again in politics here? Is there any proof on US bid to influence Indian polls? These are some of the questions that I want to raise. I'm joined by T.P. Srinivasan. He's former representative, United Nations, Washington, D.C. By K.C. Singh, former secretary at the Ministry of External Affairs. And Irfan Nuruddin is professor, Georgetown University School of Foreign Service, tracks South Asia very closely. I appreciate all of you joining us. K.C. Singh, to you first. What's your sense? Is this a storm in a teacup? Have we got egg on our face by immediately reacting to what Donald Trump said and now finding there may be no evidence, at least hard documented evidence, to back the claim that United States was funding Indian elections on voter turnout?
Look, Rajiv, we've dealt with Trump for 4 years, the last time he was president, and we know that he indulges in fact-free politics, he splashes facts around, and the Indian thing is only one part of it. Look at his exchanges with Ukraine. He says he's given $500 billion, and I want that many minerals back from Ukraine. The facts are that he's given only about 120 billion, and the EU have given more than that. So, he just distorts figures. Therefore, it's always dangerous to immediately react when you hear something coming from him. Either like Brzezinski, you contend it. There is a reluctance in New Delhi not to do that because then he gets very upset and you get into an altercation with him. Or you just put up, now you take the so many $1 million for condoms in Gaza because Gaza, it was going into Israel, it was going to West Asia. The confusion is that the Gaza, which is mentioned there, is Gaza in Mozambique. And the condoms were going to fight HIV/AIDS. It had nothing to do with Gaza and West Asia. So what Elon Musk has done, he's unleashed hundreds of these technocratic kids who are working for him. And they're going and pulling figures out, not knowing the context, not knowing the larger reality, that this is a program started by JFK in 1961. And JFK called it the developmental decade. Every country has it. We have a foreign assistance program. And in that, democracy was always a part of it because US wanted to spread the message about free markets and about democracy. It's not a secret.
No, but is it possible that as a result, some of the money that was supposedly meant to promote democratic values could have gone to NGOs, which is then used by in this instance, the BJP to suggest this was being done to benefit the opposition, destabilize them? Or is that simply barking up the wrong tree?
Rajiv, MHA monitors it. You would have seen over the last 2-3 years, they've taken away the permission of a number of NGOs to receive foreign funding. They're very closely monitoring. It's not External Affairs Ministry. MHA is closely monitoring all flow of funds. So if there was nothing on their radar, then certainly I don't see what is the brouhaha at the moment, because it should have come up at that stage. They're like a tooth comb, CPR, this and that. They've stopped the funding of anyone, even seen as marginally critical of the government. But something that was seen as affecting democracy, they've gone after it.
Mr. Srinivasan, what's your view? Has the government of India ended up overreacting and without documented evidence to back these claims that actual money was sent, $21 million was sent to India, which in any case is not a very big amount to influence an Indian election, for God's sake? Do you believe the government of India could have handled this better? Or do you believe there could be something more that could come out in the weeks and months ahead?
I agree with Casey what may have happened. But one thing I can say is that this is against the USAID, not against India. President Trump is wanting to close it down, and he wanted to enumerate lots of faults made by USAID. And in the process, he found this figure somewhere and pushed it out.
No, so we are getting tangled in his domestic politics. That's exactly it. He wants to cut back on USAID, and we are getting the blowback.
Let me also tell you one thing. India is not one of the major aid receivers from the US. I remember when I was there was a Burton Amendment which used to come to the Congress every year. And we used to fight it tooth and nail. There's a resolution would say, cut down 10% of assistance to India for human rights violations in India. And when we found out there was no USAID at all activity in India, We were not an aid receiver at all. But still, we were fighting a shadow, thinking that we are getting it without finding out whether we are actually getting it or not. So finally, we decided not to fight it because we are not receiving any USAID at that time. And there was no point in fighting a huge battle in the Congress. So such things happen. But I think Mr. Jayashankar's point is valid. We have to look at it, and this is deserving a consideration that he has to say for the sake of the president. I don't think there
No,
will
but
be any
he's
more
saying,
skeletons
I
in the
just want to
cupboard.
understand, surely this documented evidence of money coming from USAID, which is an official government body of the United States, would be available to our ministries? The Home Ministry would monitor it, the Ministry of Finance would monitor it. They've come out with a report. You know, this suggestion that America was in some cloak and dagger manner operating seems a bit strange, doesn't it, to you? This foreign hand
No, all
bringing
these,
in George Soros now?
yes. Yeah, right. No, that's all create headlines in India. That is why it happens. But as I said, the Burton Amendment where we are fighting without even knowing whether we are getting any US aid. So similar thing will appear. This money may have gone to Bangladesh or it may not have gone to anybody else. But this will come out. I don't think we need to worry too much about this allegation. It's
Okay,
a
so
anti-USAID position.
is this though Irfan Nuruddin, Elon Musk, and Donald Trump at play using the Department of Government Expenses because they want to cut down on government expenses? We are told today 1,500 people have been served termination notice in USAID in Washington, and India is getting tangled in the domestic politics unleashed by the Trump-Musk duo. Is that the sense you get in Washington?
100%, Rajdeep, as your esteemed co-panelist said. I mean, this is American domestic politics. It is an attack on USAID, and more generally, it is an attack on America's role in the world. I mean, at the end of the day, the idea that this money spent, as your colleague Geeta Mohan said, was characterized as not being helpful to America is false, right? What Kennedy and every president after that understood is that America's power in the world was because of soft power. This is money that goes to help poor people around the world fight malaria, to fight hunger, starvation, and increasingly in recent years, to build market linkages, build entrepreneurship, etc. So what Trump and Musk are against is all of that. But look, what happened over here is you had Trump essentially talking, as Ambassador Singh said, factory politics. He's shooting from the hip. And what is the real claim over here? There are two claims. One is that money went for voter turnout. That in and of itself, even if it was true, and it's not true, even if it was true, is not inherently controversial. Having more people participate in elections is a good thing. But the second thing he said was, first he said, this is for going to my friend, Mr. Modi. The second thing he said is they wanted someone else elected. It is that second statement that is completely irresponsible on the part of Mr. Trump because there's absolutely no evidence of any of that. And for the Indian government, for the pro-BJP side, from Amit Malviya and the IT cell, to seize on that is actually a second issue that we have to talk about, which is that it taps a deep insecurity within Indian politics right now about the role of civil society, about the role of a free media, and the notion that any funding going to train media journalists, just looking at the information on your screen, on our screens right now, the kind of projects that are funded, or to fund voter turnout is inherently anti-Mr. Modi, inherently anti-government, and therefore inherently anti-India is deeply problematic. At the end of the day, every paisa that enters India to from a foreign fund to an NGO is more scrutinized over the last decade than at any previous time. This is incredibly impossible. It's impossible to imagine that money in the amounts of millions was flowing into India to NGOs under the current government's watch, and they have absolutely no clue as to how that money was being spent or what the memoranda of understanding were governing that. If that's true, that's actually an admission on their part of gross negligence, and I don't believe that that's what they're trying to say.
Yeah, but you're saying that the whole notion of America getting deeply involved in enhancing voter turnout seems, prima facie to be a bit strange in the context of India. But KC Singh, documents show that it has gone to Bangladesh, which had an election, and then there was the controversy over the manner in which the election was conducted, eventually led to Sheikh Hasina leaving the country, a students' revolt. So this notion that America is interfering, you see, there is this subtext that America wants to interfere and destabilize governments in South Asia, and that's being preyed upon. Do you believe that there is a genuine fear, Or is this classic foreign hand started by Indira Gandhi in the 1970s, now taken to another level by the Modi government?
Look, it's been talked about openly for a long time that they were unhappy with Sheikh Hasina. That's not a secret. And when she went, very clearly, India has hinted, everybody has hinted that there is an American hand in this. But nowhere does it say that the US government, the last one or this one, wants to remove Mr. Modi. Mr. Modi is one of the most pro-US prime ministers India has had. Why would they want to replace him? Replace him with what? A government and a UPA government. You don't know what the policy of that government may be.
No, the BJP says it's not the US government. This is the deep state, the likes of George Soros.
George Soros can send his own money. Nobody is claiming it's his money that has come. They're saying it's US government's USAID money, for which they are accountable to their legislature, and people are accountable here who are receiving that money. So it becomes so. But this foreign hand thing is a very old gambit. It's not new. Anytime any leader feels he needs a stick to beat the opposition with, you pull out this argument of a foreign hand. Though at the moment, Mr. Modi is under no threat from the opposition at the moment. So I don't see what was the need for it, unless the idea is keep the opposition as suppressed as you possibly can.
You know, that's precisely the point, T.P. Srinivasan. You've dealt with America over the years. This is a period when there is a bipartisan consensus between Republicans and Democrats to have a pro-India approach to relations in South Asia. The old-style hyphenation of India-Pak is over. They've de-hyphenated it. India is the focus. So why would anyone in the US want to jeopardize that relationship using USAID? And then when George Soros' name is tossed around, it seems that it's only used to keep the pot boiling. Should the government of the day be telling these IT cell warriors of theirs, lay off? You're only embarrassing us.
No, talking about somebody trying to influence the elections, he is aiming at Biden, because Biden is not supposed to have had a good relationship with India. And therefore, there were these rumors that he was trying to declare India non-democratic, etc. So he used that. But the whole thing, as I said earlier, is not aimed against India at all. This is a cost-cutting exercise, is to paying and looking for evidence. In fact, even all this, the most ridiculous thing is there was confusion between water and water, whether this was for water's turnout or to improve the water supply situation in India. So that is the amount of ridiculous interpretations being given. So I don't think it is a serious matter to be,
so should we just ignore? Are you saying, Mr. Srinivasan, we should ignore Donald Trump may well come tomorrow morning and say, look, I've given $25 million in, the previous government gave $25 million to the Modi government for allegedly issues related to democracy. Should we just ignore the man? Is that the way to do it? Can you ignore the President of the United States?
Yes. Yes, in this particular case, you can. You can at least wait till he comes back. I don't think we'll hear about it anymore.
Irfan, you're smiling through this. You're in Washington, so you probably know a little bit more about the way Donald Trump operates. Should the Indian government deal with him, be ready at times to just ignore what he says rather than react every time Donald Trump opens his mouth?
If we all have to learn how to ignore Donald Trump, or we're going to go insane over the next 4 years. But the Indian government has to be secure in its own policies, its own regulations, off-the-cuff allegation that has been contradicted by the president himself, as your reporting suggested, 4 different statements that get the facts, that change the facts. We cannot be reacting every time he says something. The next thing he might say might be something that's about PLI, it's about manufacturing. He called India the tariff king, right? The truth of the matter is that Donald Trump says what he thinks his audience wants to hear in a given moment. We have to know what is actually true, and we have to do the facts. You asked earlier whether or not the IT cell should be told to calm down. It should. Think of the position that those tweets are putting the MEA in. If Dr. Jaishankar wants to do a serious probe and come out, the facts are going to show that there was no malfeasance over here. But the narrative construction being conducted by other elements supportive of the government will suggest that any such finding is prima facie incorrect, cannot be believed, because they've already linked it to George Soros. They've already linked it to all sorts of other sorts of allegations. So a serious government is secured in knowing what exactly is happening in its own country and can say, we know, we've vetted. No money comes from USAID that doesn't get vetted through here. We know who the recipients are. There are records on the books. We know when the money was spent.
Right.
We know USAID projects are incredibly detailed about the exact activities to be done. So even something called voter participation could simply be helping people understand, how to read the news, how to understand polls. That is not nefarious work, right? And there should be documents at MHA for each of these contracts. And if that's not, that's a separate set of issues that we should be asking why our government is allowing money to come in under the rules.
I want to give Casey 30 seconds to wrap this up for us. Should we have a white paper at all, as is the opposition in India is now calling for? Or should we just now let sleeping dogs lie, let Donald Trump say what he wants and not react? A quick reaction from you.
I said, look at the irony of it. Who is saying that voters have been increased in the state elections? Is the opposition claiming it? That the ruling party has done it in Maharashtra, in Haryana, and so on and so forth. The ruling party is not saying that the opposition has increased the voters. Well, I think the lesson is that as long as Trump is president, he's already being domestically attacked. He'll be sufficiently weakened, some say even within weeks, if not months, because in town hall meetings, people are standing up and questioning even Republican congressmen. So there is a huge churn which is taking place. In the meanwhile, keep your seatbelts tightened. Do not react every time Trump says something, but also do question them. Don't go silent. Right. You don't need to provoke him, but you can't also let it pass, because you are the largest democracy in the world. You can't be just sitting silently, nor using it to attack the opposition. So I think the lesson is treat it with a degree of confidence in your own nation, quietly contradict him, by the same time, be ready for some more shocks as we go forward.
Okay, we'll leave it there, KC Singh. Hopefully, some of the BJP's IT cell warriors and indeed the opposition is also listening. The last thing we want is to get Indian politics tangled in actually what is a policy debate taking place in the United States, and Trump using it to target his rivals there, and then we end up embarrassing ourselves in the process. Thank you very much to my guests for joining me.